Working around obstructions. Gable end overlap on aluminum solariums. When your aluminum solarium has a gable end overlap, this means that the vertical gable end glazing bar projects into the room further than the first roof or curved glazing bar. The result is that the shade cannot clear this obstruction. With a combination of various Lexan retainers, we are able to build up the tracking system to project beyond the 3/4 inch overlap. A special L retainer must be applied into the side of the glazing bar. Then a 1-inch track extender fits into the slot of the L retainer. Finally, the gear track gets installed inside the track extender. Gable end overlap on wood solariums. When your solarium is constructed from wood, the gable end obstruction only projects by about 1/4 inch. In this case, we simply use a standard L retainer, which allows us to clear the barrier. The gear track is then installed into the L retainer. This optically clear extender allows us to see through plastic to blend in perfectly with the wooden beam. Gable end track colors. Gable end L retainers and track extenders are available in clear, bronze, and white Lexan plastic. Lexan, also known as polycarbonate plastic, is resistant to heat and damaging ultraviolet light to ensure years of trouble-free use. Partial solid wall gable end applications. Notice how we work around this obstruction. The problem here is that the 2-inch thick movable rail must be raised above the 2x6 wall obstruction. An L retainer is installed into the middle of the glazing bar, slightly higher than normal, to push the shade closer to the glass. The glazing bar depth is 2.5 inches so that the movable rail is able to clear the wall obstruction. Ceiling fan obstructions. Often, a ceiling fan junction box will be installed directly onto the face of the glazing bar. Since the octagonal electrical box is wider than the glazing bar, this will create an obstruction as the movable rail will not be able to bypass this obstruction. The built-in shade track is usually 1/2 inch back from the face of the glazing bar. The only exception is when a rafter stiffener is used. Solarishade movable rails are exactly 2 inches thick. Half the rail sits behind the gear track and half the rail sits in front of the gear track. That means that the front of the movable rail is exactly 1/2 inch in front of the standard glazing bar. Any ceiling fan or junction box installed directly onto the face of the glazing bar must be shimmed with a minimum 3/4 inch spacer. This shim must also be no wider than the aluminum or wood glazing bar. Track lighting obstructions. Track lights are often used on solariums. Sometimes these lighting tracks are fastened perpendicular to glazing bars. Should this be the case, this would cause an obstruction where the movable rail would not be able to pass the barrier. Track lighting should always be mounted vertically as to not create issues with the shades. As with ceiling fans, any electrical junction box should also be shimmed a minimum of 3/4 inch off the face of the glazing bar.